This process generally takes 2 days, and it's not easy work, according to Marin. The secret is in the embalming, but she has not revealed the exact details. Typically, in normal embalming, the body is washed in a disinfectant solution, and the limbs are massaged and morphed to relieve stiffness of the joints and the limbs, according to the Funerals Consumers Alliance. Approximately 16 ounces of fluid combined with 2 gallons of water is a good dilution. Facial hair is shaved off, unless the deceased wore facial hair. Next, the surgical embalming or cosmetic processes begin with the removal of bodily fluid using formaldehyde-based chemical solutions. The body is then prepared for viewing by styling the hair, applying makeup, and setting the facial features. Embalming does not provide any public health benefit, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. It's only mandatory for persons who had died of communicable diseases, who were to be transported by airline or other common carrier, or who were to be buried more than 24 hours after death. Miriam Brookbank is sat at a dining room table with a can of her favorite beer and a pack of cigs. But the 53-year-old isn't enjoying a relaxing evening at home after a long day's work. In fact, she is dead, and her rigid body has been dressed up, contorted into position and put on display at the request of her family. This is extreme embalming, where bodies are preserved by injecting them with a chemical fluid which makes them totally rigid, before being displayed in bizarre real-life positions. Corpses are forced into position by having their feet nailed to the floor, poles erected behind their necks, and even their limbs prized apart. The demand for it is growing, with more and more people paying around $4,000 to have their loved one brought back to life for 2-3 days before the funeral takes place. Meanwhile, one poker enthusiast was propped up at a table with a mountain of chips in front of him and a handful of cards, so his loved ones could play a memorial game around him at the wake. There are obviously some major logistical difficulties with dressing up corpses and forcing them into these party poses. For one, a special type of embalming fluid is needed to keep the body stiffer than usual and prevent any awkward slumps in the middle of the ceremony. It also takes an estimated 4 times longer to prepare a body for a death scene than it does for a regular funeral, with corpses often needing to be forced into position and then somehow fixed there. Jazz singer Lionel Batiste needed to be strapped to a lamppost to keep from falling over at his standing funeral, and his shoes had to be nailed to the floor in case anyone bumped into him. Typically, it costs around $1,000 to embalm a body, but in these cases the average price is likely to be in excess of $4,000. Embalmed bodies last longer before decomposing, but these pose displays are only designed to be put on show for a day or so, the same amount of time you'd keep someone in an open casket. Puerto Rican embalmer Felix Cruz arranged the poker-themed death scene where it looked like the deceased was playing one final game. Speaking on Channel 5's Extreme Embalmers documentary, he said, "I injected different parts of the body with different formulas of embalming fluid. For the hand I injected formaldehyde, put the fingers apart and inserted the cards. I used a pipe to maintain the head and neck in position, inside the body,